Hello, everybody, and welcome to The End. We're at episode 50, the final chapter of the book and the anime with the exact same name, Gods in Heaven, All is Well on Earth. There you go, Shiroi, see? All is well. Happy
Okay.
now? Okay.
I'll
All
think
right,
about it.
All right, let's start. 3, 2, 1, click. Seed Lips, All is Well on Earth.
Of course.
Or to paraphrase a catchy 80s song, ooh, heaven is a place on earth.
Joven. I've heard that song enough times, thank you very much.
Oh, you've heard that song.
Joe, to be fair, it's pretty popular.
Yeah,
It's a
it's a
famous
very
song, I
popular
mean.
song, Joe.
Well, you know what? I guess she eventually does ride in a buggy with a horse, though not that horse, and never in that dress. She'll lie to me.
Well, it was in the opening, so technically it is in the show, even
Not to
if
mention,
not.
like,
I'm pretty. If I had a penny for every time there's a shot of a group of people on a cliff, during an opening of an anime, and they didn't actually do that in the proper series, I would have enough to buy the Blu-ray set of that series.
Probably. And giving
Sonic
import
X even has
costs,
shots in
those
its intro that aren't in the show.
well, it's common in anime.
Yeah. Well, even cartoons, DuckTales also had that.
Mm-hmm.
Come to think of it, Anne never did cuddle that bird in the show.
That bird is uncuddled and it's sad.
That
Bird is
never
alive.
that bird never existed.
Oh boy, another funeral?
No. They're just putting some flowers on his grave.
I mean, oh god, if they were gonna kill Marilla off screen.
No. Lips, you should already know by this point that Takahata and Lucy have no problem in showing you the character dying.
They'll
No,
even,
And they'll
Oh,
make you sit with it for a
they'll
while,
even put a
too.
bullet in their head for you if they need to.
Here, let me show you the
I'm
entire...
half expecting an assassin to pop up any minute.
No, Dwebs, this is not time in eternity.
Anne. Wait, time. Wait, I've got it. Time and eternity.
I was just gonna say, Pedro, it's not the same loop of animation every 5 seconds. Which is sad. This is in 1979.
I have to admit, I'm gonna miss, South African DC Douglas.
Yeah, I actually really like this narrator's voice. He has a really good voice for it.
He's very calming even.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if this had been narrated by Morgan Freeman.
Here we'll learn true facts about the end.
I thought, Joe, for some reason, I thought you were going to say Gilbert Gottfried.
If I were going to make a new English dub for this anime, I would totally immerse myself into the whole Canada aspect. Get only Canadian actors. Try my best to verify what would the Canadian accents be like in this time period. Try my best to be as accurate to the time period as possible.
I guess to be fair, narrator-wise, you could give Jim Dale a try.
Sure.
Oh God, I can just imagine Gilbert Gottfried reading something like this.
I mean,
Gables lived a happy life.
I mean, look. Give
Sorry.
Gilbert Gottfried credit. He improves 50 Shades of Grey immensely when he reads it.
It does. And then, yeah.
There'd probably be some meta jokes about how there's a character named Gilbert in this show.
Oh God, you're
Why
right.
is that treating Gilbert like such an asshole?
Wait, come to think of it, is Gilbert Gottfried Canadian?
Let me see.
Isn't he American?
Let me see.
You can never be too careful. You'd be surprised how many people are one nationality when everyone else thought they were the other.
He's from Brooklyn.
Okay.
Oh, there you go then.
But seriously though, so many people thought Johnny Depp was British only for him to turn out to be American.
And news travel past.
Small town.
Well, small town too.
both my parents are from a small town, so like I get this whole thing.
Oh boy. A village?
I mean, I think Carmarthen was still considered a town at that point.
Gesundheit.
So yeah, aside from
It's just Welsh tier.
I mean, it's considered a county town.
But yeah, like despite being becoming a teacher, she's still going to study on the side, continue her studies on the side.
Anne.
Carmarthen's not that hard to pronounce.
Anne. Red and green.
And I have
Colors of
English.
Christmas. Oh! So I was right. She does get the Avonlea School after all.
This time is not Miss Rachel Linder to be surprised.
So yeah, Gilbert. Yeah.
All for Anne.
He wants to help her.
So it really does come all full circle for Anne. She will become the teacher of the very school she taught at.
Yep.
I mean, that she learned it. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, hint, hint, whip, whip, lick, lick.
Everyone's a shipper.
Including me.
I was the one who called it from the very beginning. Those two tried to kill. Well, no, sorry, from the moment Anne tried to kill Gilbert.
So Anne, maybe it's time to do what Marilla refused to back in the day and actually apologize.
Like, the universe has been
so-
shooting you some pretty big hints.
So Shira, so wait a minute, Shira, are you telling me that Anne and Gilbert are your new OTP?
No.
Ah.
I forgot, Shiroi. Were you the one who shipped Franziska and Maya?
No, Franziska and
Adrian, same.
Ah,
And I still ship it.
you and a lot of people. Oh, come on. Children are... No, I can't even finish that.
Oh, Diana's calling us.
It's the end signal. Ta-da-da-da.
Batman!
Okay, that doesn't work. I need a song. I need a famous song that fits the Anne of Green Gables' number of
Again, Bat
Syllables.
Ann. It's simple. Bat Ann.
That is true. I never actually searched what the lyrics of the original Japanese
yeah,
opening
syllables.
meant.
That's it. Yeah.
Man, Aunt Josephine's hanging in there, all things considered.
Yep, I guess she was one of the more healthier of the older people in this.
I like how she always seems more enthusiastic to see Anne than her family.
But it never... And that's in quite the contrast, considering the first time they met.
That's the thing, Shiroi. Remember, her and Anne have a lot in common. They have a lot of big interest in books and all that stuff, which is not the same with. Don't get me wrong. Anne Josephine still loves her family. It's more so that Anne is a very strong, like a best friend that she doesn't really have otherwise. Aside from also reminding her of the daughter she never had, you know. So I can understand. Anyway, Anne Josephine doesn't agree with the decision to not go to Redmond, basically.
Please understand.
But what is she, well, Godman?
Yeah, and Josephine is it means well, but she can be a bit blunt at the way she speaks.
Are you trying to live for land, Josephine?
No, Josephine actually does have an education, actually.
Are you challenging me, child?
Yeah, I was going to say, she'd look on that as a challenge.
Yeah. No, Queen Victoria absolutely loved and relished the challenge. Uh-huh.
That's okay, Aunt Josephine. I envy her too. There you go. She has a little. There you go. Now she even has fun with the family and everything, as you can see. There you go.
See, Anne eventually did do something similar to an audiobook, Audible.
There's money to be made in that idea. Now, if only if I could find a way to record one's voice.
The gramophone, I think, was not too far from it.
Yeah, I'm particularly very fond of that final speech that Anne gives to Josephine, like the ultimate realization of what exactly this entire story is all about. The importance of the people and the
Oh,
connections we make throughout our
Northern.
lives.
How about that?
Yeah, that's right. We probably should tell her.
Wouldn't that have been interesting? Her being study partners with her teacher. Oh, that's just oh, damn it. She has the same voice actress as her teacher, that it sounded like it was her teacher writing back to her.
Mm-hmm. I can actually relate because back in the early days of Portuguese dubbing, we also had to do this. We also had to only have like 6 actors to voice the entire show. So,
Like-
for example, Dragon Ball, we had only had like 6 actors dubbing the entire cast of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z.
Damn.
Don't get me
So-
wrong, I don't mind a small cast. Heck, we do that on a regular basis, but usually we differentiate voices enough. Like, no, that sounded straight on like her teacher.
Yeah.
I guess the mentality was, oh, we haven't seen that character in a while, so maybe if I still use the same voice, they won't confuse us.
I'm guessing probably was a screw up on the part of the director. Oh well.
I'm not even sure if I can call it a screw up. I'm just thinking maybe the mentality was that,
Oh,
they wouldn't. Oh. Right. So Stella is the pastor's wife, right?
No. Stella is one of her friends from Queen's College.
Oh God, she's grown up.
I think one of the 2 new girls. I think that were.
No, what I mean, no, this is Miss Allen, aka the Prime Minister's wife.
yeah, Joe, but that was Joe was asking.
Sorry. I completely mixed things up. Sorry.
Okay, I was about to
sorry.
say. Okay.
Doggo.
Oh, hey there.
Doggy.
It's actually
Because,
Gilbert's. Yeah, it's actually Gilbert's doggo.
It's a bit
Hey.
chunky.
I feel like he had that dog earlier, but it was smaller.
We even see the dog's age.
All right, here we are.
Oh, you're approaching me? Oh, she's blushing. I think she's done more than forgive you, pal. Yes! It finally comes out!
Hey.
This is the ending everyone deserves.
Yes.
Yes. I also love how his face immediately lights up. That's just you wait. We'll be the best of friends. This guy is so hopelessly
Oh.
in love with him.
Yes, they're gonna be the best of friends, alright. So good that you'll even be able to upgrade to being cousins.
Basically, at the beginning of the second book, they become study partners.
And then by
And
the
then
third
roommates.
book.
And it all escalates. So.
Yes.
Really, shouldn't you be resting?
No.
I mean, I
have
think
to
she
witness
was
this
sitting
happy
on, like-
moment.
I think she was sitting on the porch, so
Don't worry, Shiro. Anne will actually tell off a bit, as you're about to see.
Telling off somebody for doing hard work. Why does that feel familiar? Look at those two just gazing longingly into each other's eyes.
I love what she does now. Hold on. Wait for it.
Oh boy. It's like a weight has been lifted off my very soul and being.
I guess okay, Tail, correct me. Like I guess Tail, maybe it's okay if she, as long as she doesn't have to strain her eyes.
Ideally, but at that point, you're not doing a good job in general.
Again,
Oh,
this
did you notice earlier? her Marilla's dress was purple for like a full frame there.
Yeah, I did notice. But okay, to be fair, she did enter back in the room before, in the house before, and right, maybe she did change her dress.
That's a faint tale.
No,
That's
Ryan,
the
you
thing.
told me. My
That's the
bad.
thing.
There you go.
dress-
Now it's purple. There you go. Now it's purple again.
That's
my
the
God.
thing.
Oh,
Okay, seriously though, that dress was already purple earlier in the
Yeah.
scenes.
I mistook. I meant to say brown. Sorry.
But what if it's instead, golden white?
oh, shut up.
What happened, Shiroy?
No, not the ancient Java, but memes from a few years ago.
Call back to episode 3.
Well, she's in a green place now for sure.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
From what I checked, Java still does take a while for the love to fully blossom.
Again, first
Yeah,
they're best
basically-
friends, then they're roommates, and then they're cousins.
Yeah. It does. It does have its gradual process throughout most of the second book. Yes. Again, in all 8 books, too, Lucy remains committed to her realistic pacing.
Mm-hmm.
I may or may not be talking about Josie, but that's besides the point.
Oh, by the way, screw Josie. Screw her and her ugly face. This is how you know it's me.
All right, they slightly changed the dialogue here in the Western dubs, but what she says in the Japanese version is the same thing that she says in her final line in the book: "God's in heaven, all is well on earth."
Top
Oh my
secret,
God.
we're trying to sleep here.
And we're glad you're happy, but we're trying to sleep.
Not just that, the first line of the song is the quote from Catriel. I wonder
That's what I
what
thought
is-
everybody was reacting to.
I wonder what is the actual origin point then.
But yes, life is stranger than fiction.
Yes, it
Oh,
is.
so we don't even get a final narration from South African DC Douglas.
No, they ended the same way the book does, with Anne saying, "All God's in heaven, all is well on earth." Basically.
I know, I get that, but I kind of hoped that at least for the anime they would do that like as a role-play conclusion.
I'm guessing Takata didn't feel the need to. All right, and that was Anne of Green Gables. We are officially done with Lucy Montgomery's magnum opus.
Well,
All right,
the
too, I
first book
think-
of it, anyway.
Yeah,
Well, my final thoughts might be a bit long, so if anyone has shorter ones, we can go first.
you right?
Yeah, I guess I'll go first. Fantastic series overall. I like all the characters. Even Josie isn't completely terrible.
Oh, no. Josie is a wonderful antagonist.
She's the kind of character you love to hate, basically.
And I do appreciate that Anne, of all people, said a couple of episodes ago, it's like, I tried to find something good in her, but even I can't do that. It's like, wow. No, just a really good cast of characters. I love all the music. It's like, for the time, like, the animation is beautiful. Like, even with the small mistakes it does have, which are few. And even the acting is really good, surprisingly, for the time. I am curious to read the book myself, or at least find an audiobook, maybe.
The second book is public domain, so you can just go on the internet and read it. But yes, I'm pretty confident there are also audio log versions.
What's the
the books are the
situation
book-
with all the other books? There's like 8 total, I think.
Yes, but only the first 2 are public domain.
I think...
But don't tell everybody, because the Montgomery estate doesn't want you
Yeah,
to know
because
that.
that's the
because the states are greedy.
it's like I said, that's how I managed to get the first 2 books on through the Apple bookstore for nothing.
Yeah.
I think,
And yet,
like...
Webs, if you go into my bookshop, there's it right there, being sold for actual money.
Well, I mean, a series this notable would probably have audio versions of all of them anyway, so yeah, that'll be fine. This was just a very enjoyable experience. Like, I'm glad I got to see the whole thing, because I know Pedro had to persuade me, as well as one other person, to like keep watching after the first couple of episodes, because like, is this gonna keep being this miserable? But no, this was this turned out to be really good. It's funny, heartwarming,
Insightful.
yeah. It's nice to see like, there's so many surprising things. Like, I feel like you did get to know quite a bit about the author as well through this, which was really nice. But
Do you see Anne as a good role model for little girls?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Because that's kind of how I always see it. So
No, there's no question about that. But yeah, I think that's it from me for this. This was really good.
Can I go
All right.
next?
Go on, Debs.
Yeah, all in all, this is a very, very good show. I mean, this is one of those few shows where I can not only understand the slower pacing, but also kind of enjoy the show more because of it. Well, mainly because there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. That also helps.
Mm-hmm.
I do enjoy the background. I mean, the animation itself is pretty standard fare for around this point in time, but the actual backgrounds and stuff is really well done, even when it isn't Miyazaki doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I really enjoyed the characters, especially Matthew, which is even more heartbreaking when what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And Anne herself is also a lot of fun as a protagonist, even with those problems.
The Hinamizawa syndrome is real.
Yeah. It's like I've always said, giving your protagonist flaws is great, but if you mishandle said flaws, it becomes really difficult to root for a character.
Honestly, I would argue the only mishandled flaw was her stubbornness to forgive Gilbert. Aside from that, I don't really.
Yeah, that was what I was referring to.
Yeah. Go on.
And the music itself, the actual compositions were really good. The only issue was the weird placement, especially the singing, the vocal tracks. Like, they were placed in bits that were a bit odd. Also, for the standards of the 1980s, and especially considering I don't think South Africa is known for anime dubs, this is actually a really good dub, especially for the time it came out. Which is a miracle, because it was around this time where we weren't even at the 90s the early to mid 90s period of good dubs being you could count on one hand. In this era, it was like good dubs you could count with I know your head.
There were quite a few good ones still. It was just a matter of knowing where to find them.
Yeah, because I mean it's interesting because I mean we have great dubs like it's judging by 80s standards. We had good dubs like this, but we also had stuff like Warriors of the Wind.
Let me put it like this. They weren't a rarity, but it wasn't as easy to keep track of the good or bad due to, well, lack of stuff
no
like the
internet. Yep.
Yeah, no internet, and judging from the sounds of it, no real proper archiving.
Oh, definitely.
But it was the 80s. Overall, it was a really, like I said before, it's a really solid show based off a really solid book, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
And it is kind of a shame that the only anime thing since this was a prequel. I mean, and I really do hope that at some point the rest of the series gets a good adaptation, because from what I understand, this was the most adapted out of all the books, and the ones after this rarely have ever got one.
It's because this first book was the one that won Lucy all her awards, all her prestige. It's the one that, like Mark Twain, praised this book back when he was alive. This was the book that made her famous. This is the original masterpiece that everybody knows and everything. Though the other books are also really good.
Well,
but I do recommend Anne of Avonlea, the sequel to the 1985 live-action adaptation. That one is pretty good for what it is.
Honestly, I wonder if maybe some of the later books are even better. It's just that, first one is the most popular one. It really would be nice to see something that goes beyond just the first one. Of course, obviously, the stigma is probably that each adaptation has to start with the first one anyway if they want to make their own changes here and there and have people aware of them.
Yeah.
Trust me, I agree. Go on.
Again, I'm fine. I'm fine with adaptations of stuff, changing things from book to screen or whatever, because not everything is going to work straight from in the books. That's why Series of Unfortunate Events, the recent Netflix adaptation, changed a few bits and pieces, like a certain disguise in the fourth book, for example.
And give them credit, they managed to reach the end of a series too.
Yeah, as opposed to the movie, which only got as far as the third book.
You just told me that it mashed the different properties into one.
The second book got done pretty dirty.
To be fair, from what I recall, the book series wasn't even done by the time that first movie was made.
Yeah, I mean, the film was released in 2000. Yeah, the film was released in 2004. The series only ended in 2006.
So it's not like they could have tried to have made up their own ending ahead of it, because, that doesn't always turn out the best.
On the time of the whole adaptations, fun fact, Ibs, I actually had a recent comment put on these videos of mine that we've been using, of someone saying, "Thank you for putting this up. I've been enjoying these ever since Anufin E got cancelled." So like I've said, a lot of Anufin E fans were sad about the cancellation, went on to read the books, see other adaptations. So from
what I've seen and heard of Anufin E, for all its problems, it doesn't sound like it did damage to the brand, and if anything, did help.
It's not like, I'm very critical of the first episode that I've seen, but even then, to say it's like the worst show ever or something, it's a bit excessive.
Like the fact that it created a whole new generation of fans who are now reading the books and watching other adaptations. Okay, I'm grateful for that, at least. Very good.
Yeah.
And while not many, I've at least had some good to say about.
Although I still want Anne with an A for Aliens. Damn it!
No.
If Pride and Prejudice and Zombies could get made.
All right. You done, Lips?
Yeah, that's it. I'm done. Aliens. Damn
Believe it or not, Shiroi, it's more awesome than you think.
Oh, Dwebs, one more before we continue. Aliens.
Alien,
Yeah.
it's an entire planet full of nothing but ant lookalikes.
All right, who's next?
Jova, since I'm guessing Tail wants to go last.
Mhm.
Go on, Jova.
How to put it with this anime? I would consider it a terminology of hyper good. Let me put it like this. It is good, like very, very good. But would I call it the most amazing thing? No. However, it doesn't need to be the most amazing thing. Like, yeah, we can talk about the worst of the worst, or the best of the best, but sometimes we just need media that just trucks along and does everything good. Fine, even. I mean, let me put it like this. It's one of the best attempts to make essentially real life interesting. Real life can be pretty boring, let's be honest. Like, the reason we make media is for escapism, something more interesting. So, what this is honestly one of the best attempts to make regular life relatively interesting. That's not to say there haven't been others that have done it, but man, this one does it pretty much well. It's kind of like that movie The Straight Story, which I won't go into a whole essay about the hidden genius of that movie, but let's just say it does go into the intricacies of how, yeah, something could be really boring in real life, but there can be payoff to that in that regard. And like with The Straight Story, Anna Green Gables manages to do it. Now, like I said, it's not perfect. It's not even the best thing I've seen, but it's very good. It does have its flaws, like sometimes the music, for some reason, just does not fit, weirdly enough. And while I do get it was a thing in the original story, sometimes Anne can be a little too annoying, especially with the whole Gilbert thing. Like, at that point, I do feel like they should have at least started to have been friends from that point. Like, even by realistic standards, I feel like she was being a little bit ridiculous. Now, granted, it is nice, but unfortunately, this anime doesn't cover the other books, so, yeah. That's pretty much it with her and Gilbert. Now, again, for all the problems this anime has, it does a ton of stuff right. So I assure you, it is not like it ruins it for me in the slightest. It is just things that I feel like could be patched up here and there. I'll admit, though, like, this is a pretty good adaptation, and it really has reinvigorated my interest in the franchise as well. Again, kind of a shame that, you know, the only ways to get the full stories is by reading. And don't get me wrong, I like to read as much as the next guy here and there, but, man, how cool would it have been to have gotten an adaptation of the full series?
Well, Jova, maybe one day we can do Anne of Green Gables, 1985, and its sequel, Anne of Avonlea.
True, yeah, maybe. But, all in all, I am glad to have seen this anime in its entirety. There were some times where maybe I did feel a bit bored, but it all did come out on top, I would say, to give us a very rewarding experience, and one that I assure you I will not forget. TL, go on.
Well, actually, Tail wants to go last, so let me just put it this way. Yeah, I'm not gonna go too long anyway. Again, I'm a big fan of romanticizing the mundane. I respect immensely a filmmaker who is capable of doing that, because, like Jova said, yeah, we use media for escapism, which is why it's so impressive to me when a filmmaker manages to take the very issues and troublings and overall complexity of the issues we deal with real life and make it interesting, make it relatable, making it enjoyable, make it so that you enjoy watching the lives of these people in front of you. And it's something that I have a lot of respect for, because it's very, very hard to do for all the reasons Joe already explained. And it's why I absolutely appreciate this show so much. It's a fantastic, like Jova said, it's like Straight Story. A great example of a show that rewards the patience of the viewer with fantastic payoffs, emotionally and thematically wise. The characters are all incredible and very well written, despite there's that issue with Anna and Phil. Yeah, and I do agree that it would have been probably better if the book made her forgive Gilbert there and then. But oh well, what can you do? But yeah, it's still it's still my personal favorite anime, because it's just one of those cases where it also of course has to do with nostalgia because I grew up with it, so of course it's going to be one of those cases. But I genuinely think that this anime is a wonderful piece of media that is deserving of. I think everyone who's a fan of anime, especially slice of anime, has to watch this at least once because it really is one of those animes that really is very special. It's abundantly clear that every single frame of this anime was carefully crafted by a production team with tremendous love for the source material. So I want to thank Takahata for all his efforts. Same thing for the South African dub. Thank you for treating this material with respect and trying your best. And that's all I have to say, really. Theo, the floor is yours.
Okay, there was something that I wanted to talk about potentially the future books, but considering Shiri and the others want to read them, I'm probably just going to ask you in private on that front. One thing that I can ask is something that I didn't in one of the previous episodes, why I probably should have got the chance in the episode where Anne accidentally dyes her hair out, because I don't remember, unfortunately, if it's actually spoken in the episode, but apparently from what I've seen here, in the book, Marilla, when she knows about the accident and she learns about the peddler, she immediately goes for a stereotype and she tells Anne never to let one of those Italians in the house. I don't believe in encouraging them and come around at all. Yeah. So I was a bit curious about that. But if I recall correctly, she doesn't say that in the anime.
No, in the anime, Takahata changed that line. And for as forward thinking as Lucy was, unfortunately, she was still a person that lived in a more, how should I put it, more primitive time.
No, I get. Don't worry, Pedro. It's not like that. It was also more of a stereotype rather than Marilla just being like racist or something. It was literally just a thing, especially considering apparently in the book it's literally mentioned that the peddler instead was apparently a German Jew. So there is that as well. But the trivia aside, let me start with the episode. It's the episode in the series itself, and then I will get to the point that I want to foreshadow a couple episodes ago. It's competently made, actually, especially for the time being. We joked about, let me also mention this. If there's one phrase that can sum up this was a nice collection of Bob Ross paintings with a story attached to them.
Yes, it was.
But jokes aside, again, the backgrounds are well painted like that. First for Miyazaki and then who sub-entered him. The character animations, while a bit rough at times, still manages to, get the job done. The food is also super HD again for the time being.
An anime,
again,
of course it is.
Priorities, as usual, for anime. And it manages to get the job of recreating the environment of Canada without, having to feel like it's not, doing the proper culture of the country. You can legitimately believe this is a story set in Canada with Canadian people. And again, also props to the South African dubbing team for this version that we watched. If you know anything about me, you know that I'm the more critical about English dubs for anime, not in the sense of necessarily the quality of the voice actors, necessarily because, like I mentioned a couple of times, a lot of these people are still great in voicing literally everything else, like, Christopher Sabat, Johnny on Bosch, and so on. It's just that my brain is so conditioned by watching anime just in my country, Italian, or in Japanese, that when I see an anime dubbed in English, it just disconnects. I can't easily associate, English voices for that kind of product. It's weird, I know. But for this one, it works actually for the better. And again, I really hope that some of these people actually got jobs, in the future of these, because they're not really that bad. Particularly, the narrator jokingly referred to as South African DC Douglas, Anne's voice actress, for example. So you can tell that some performers were a bit more phoned in than others, but again, it's very understandable. Cheap budget, for a time where it wasn't super common to do so. Again, especially confronted with something like, say, the first series of Kimba the White Lion and the Speed Racer anime. If you've heard of the English doubles, it's laughable at the very least, because everyone talks super fast and tries to be over the top, but all the times fail miserably at it. So again, in that kind of age, managing to make it a point to get right the English voice for this one is something that I can appreciate at that. The story itself, like I mentioned, episode after episode is fine. My favorite episode is probably still the concert hall overall, probably. The final story arc, like I said, I do believe it's a tad too rushed. And don't get me wrong, not for the anime, but for the story in itself. Not in the sense that we should have spent like 10 episodes about Matthew's death, and mourning. But I do believe the period of the actual college could have expanded a bit more, seeing and meeting new people there, meeting the new people, having a different life, confronting a bit more with your friends. And so instead, a lot of these sections are just quickly summed up, because I get the idea what Lucy wants to tell us with this is that bit is not really important. We should need to be focusing on something else. And don't get me wrong, I do believe the rest of the anime has been told like that, but I kind of wish there was a bit more. Like, okay, book-wise, I don't know how many chapters that would translate to, but for an anime like this, around 10 episodes more would have been fine, sprinkled, I believe, throughout the second half, for the player from the college onward. I think that should have sufficed enough to expand a bit more. That being said, again, the characters are believably human, which is why during the moment, the more heartbreaking moments, it does me more feel, as me and Sherry also testified, and to an extent Pedro. It's just that he's better at handling this kind of stuff than me, at the very least.
Yeah.
But it's not that I don't appreciate it. I really understand it, but it's not really something I would watch a second time. Not really to make it to dissing it or to make it a disservice about it. It's just that really, when it comes to this kind of product, I prefer literally something else. But to be honest, I can see where what he said, where it comes from. How about everyone should see it at least once? Again, I did it as a child anyway, along with my sister anyway. It goes to show also how my country loves it. I think we've been rerunning it a couple of times in recent years. So there's that. At least the new generation are also growing with this. Could use it, probably. But let me also conclude this with something about... I know that it's going to sound a bit pretentious, but please bear with me. About death and how it entails also for someone like me. Jova's mother also, he attached to it, considering she's probably a professional, doctor. You probably heard this a lot of times, but when you really have, lived long enough for a professional like mine or Jova's mother, working the health sector or in a hospital, death kind of becomes your work colleague. They're very opportune. They can show up, without any pre-advice. They can be very rude about it, and they can really fuck up your work day. At least for me, I've been taught, kind of professionally, that the way we have to relate emotionally to someone, especially to someone we have to treat for work, is to understand their empathy, their plight and everything, but to not let ourselves be involved too much emotionally, because at the crucial moment, which is inevitable, the tampering would be too much, and at that point, it compromises literally our position. So the best thing that's been taught to us is to maintain, not necessarily a bottling up, but to basically create an emotional shutdown for this kind of sequence, and only later to talk with someone about it, usually with the work colleague, because unfortunately, despite my healthcare system to be good, mandatory therapy for workers in hospital and rest houses is not really a guaranteed thing, because therapies is weird, brain witches and all, But whatever, I'm digressing. The point about this is that I get why Anne reacted also the way she did. This is also connected to that quote from House that Pedro mentioned, because a lot of people cannot handle death while working on their professional job, and it's understandable. It's not really something that I want to give them guilt for. If it seems that I've still been too emotional also or things like that, it's mostly because I want to apply that only when I'm actually working. This is still more like a hobby, so I want to treat it in a more casual way. But death being an inevitability and all, it's something that this story also reminds us very, very grimly about it. But Anne's reaction, and okay, even Miragla to an extent, because it combines the two, is also very touching about that, and I really like it. It does remind me of other similar bits that I might have seen in different medias in the past, but sadly I cannot recall any particular examples that I could quote right now. Just to keep in mind that it's something that is present. So overall, this is basically was a nice fresh reminder for everything, Even if me and Shira joked a bit about being too real for me and all. So that was nice. And again, it's a shame that the entire thing was not adapted, but I can understand that the task would have been too humongous, which actually I can ask this question, Pedro. Do we know if Takahata had no intention at all of adapting the rest of the series at the time that this was made?
At the time that this was made, the primary idea was to adapt the biggest, most famous, most iconic, most legendary works of literature from Western literature.
And then moving on from there. Okay. So basically there was no real plan of continuing after this.
The idea was to adapt this book, because this is the book that is the most famous one. This is regarded as the crown jewel of the collection, basically. We all same thing with The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is also great, but The Adventures of Tom Sawyer is the one that most people...
Although, to be fair, I guess with Huckleberry Finn, that one does still get more recognition than I guess the rest of the answers does, which does make me wonder.
Yeah, sure.
Is it a case of the first one just being the best, or just being the most popular? Not to say that this one is not as good as people suggest, but I do wonder if the other stuff might have some untapped potential to be even better. It just doesn't get recognized as much, is what I'm wondering.
Well, okay, I can tell you that the first book is my favorite because it's the one that shows the most character growth, particularly from Anne. But of course that depends on the other person. But aside from that, as for the majority of people, I mean, I can't give you like a specific reason why this is the most popular book. It was the book that that really made Lucy Maud Montgomery a household name in Canada. So clearly it's the book that most people see as the one that started it all. It's the most famous one. I can't really give you a specific reason. It just is. I don't really have one. But yeah, to continue answering Taylor's question, yeah, the idea was to take all these iconic, legendary books and adapt them, and that's it. And they would just move on to the next book. Before you adapted this one, you adapted Heidi, Girl of the Alps.
Yeah, Heidi of the Alps.
And
then there was that bit where you did show me also that small segment from Cuore for some reason.
aka Switzerland's most iconic, famous book. So the idea was this: okay, what's this country's most famous book? What's this country's most famous book that would be great to adapt? They picked Tom Sawyer, they picked Heidi, they picked Anne, because these were the ones that, surprisingly, they never made an Oliver Twist one. Oh well.
They never did anything from Charles Dickens. Interesting. It would fit them. It would have fit them, to be honest.
Definitely.
But I'm digressing. Again, it's a bit of a shame again that the entire thing was not adapted. And even for the future, I can understand it's kind of a humongous task that it's so many books talking about the story of a single person, basically for their entire life. So it will be a really humongous task having to adapt something like that. Again, kind of like what the Harry Potter series did, and even then it had to compromise a lot of things to make it work for a movie series. I don't doubt that it's possible, but I do believe it could work well just in an animated way, because that way you don't really have to deal potentially with your actors aging too much, potentially with potential recasting and everything. So it would be a better transitioning. I don't know. Not in the sense that this series doesn't fit for live action. It probably does. It most definitely does. But if you want to have the goal of adapting the entire thing, it probably would be for the better to have a format that it's easy to have a seamless kind of transitioning if something bad happens. I don't know.
Yeah, for me, this is my personal take is that this is one of the big reasons why I was so hanged up for Anne of Any back when it was first announced. To me, these books work better as a series, not like a TV series of episodes, not so much a series of movies to me.
Although, to give it credit, from what I saw, the movies have been able to do it good still.
Oh no, the movies are fine. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to diss the
Also,
movies.
remember,
Kevin
Netflix...
Sullivan did the best he could with what he was given.
I do, if I may, I do kind of get what you mean, though. Back in the day, normally it was obvious. Normally a movie meant better quality than a TV series back in the day. I mean, that's not to say that was always the case, but more often than not, movies were what got the bigger production values. Heck, this is something that even persisted into the late 2000s or arguably the early 2010s, essentially. Like, I mean, a lot of Nickelodeon movies, I guess technically Nickelodeon and Paramount movies got Nick shows, which varied in quality, essentially. However, as of now, by the 2020s, we are at a point where TV shows can arguably give us the same quality as a movie theater. Heck, to go a bit on a bit of a tangent here, the Avatar studios and by that I mean the actual studios made for the Avatar The Last Airbender series, not James Cameron studios made for the Avatar movies. No, the Avatar studios have announced that their own live-action Avatar movie will be using the same technology that The Mandalorian is using, which is an amazing filming tactic here. And mind you, that's apparently going to be live-action series-wise from what I've heard. So essentially, though, we're at a point where TV shows can give the same qualities as movies, which means that, well, a lot of people could be vying for the default to be just go the TV show route, provided you have enough of a budget to make it look good. Because then you have, per se, you have the budget of a movie now spread out amongst the different episodes here and there.
That's the main reason why I was personally, this is just me personally, by the way. I don't want to go into a rant about that show. This is why I was personally disappointed with Anne of Any because I saw that as the perfect opportunity to finally adapt the entire series. Okay, like I said, maybe editing all 8 books would have been too much of a pipe dream, but it would have been a really good way to adapt, to make a live action adaptation that would try to be more akin to the pacing that the novel has. Because don't get me wrong, I like the Kevin Sullivan movies. It's just that the TV show format would have been so perfect to do what this anime did, which is try to replicate the pacing that Lucy intended and really try to do a live action version of what this anime did. That's why I'm personally disappointed with it, because it could have done that, but it decided to completely abandon the books and just go on its own different thing. And let's just say I don't think it's even good on its own merits, particularly the second season. But I don't want to go into another rant about it.
Like I said before, I do legit want to give it eventually a try and look. Like, I've heard a lot of varying things. Some people like it, some people don't. It does seem like it did manage to amass something of a fan base based off of what Pedro told us here and there, so maybe it's not all bad. That said, I do know what it's like to be incredibly disappointed by an adaptation of something I love, whether it be a great TV series or a book. So yeah, I'm prepared for that also turning out to be awful too.
You mentioned in our Secret of Nim commentary that it's a good movie. As an adaptation, that's a whole nother topic, so trust me, if I found Anne of Any to be a good show on its own, just not a very good adaptation, that would be another thing. It's just that it doesn't work for me as an adaptation, and even as a show on its own, even if I separate it from the source material, I still don't care much for for it, and neither does Shiroi so far, and neither does Wes for the first episode. But again,
and neither do I from the little greens that I had, which is a good connection as well.
That being said, I don't want to rank on that show too much. I just wanted to make my point.
No, it's also a good segue for me for one last thing that I want to mention. It's also nice for this show to also be that faithful, showcase, being dedicated, and even the stuff that is added, even the filler material feels more organic, and less intrusive and more like it was part of the story already. It's definitely not, like an episode where Ange will have to learn to drive, if you catch my drift. But yeah, so for this kind of story, it was kind of pivotal that it at least should have been that faithful to me because, like I mentioned, while I do appreciate the story, it's not something that I will watch it already casually on my own. So if it ends up also being like potentially not that faithful and / or a bad product on its own, that would have been made more grating. So at the very least, seeing the dedication of Takahata and the rest of the team for it. And having to give the respect was the material, it's a nice refresher in an age where the common belief is that you can't adapt something at least 100% of it. Shows like this are a good example that it can be possible with the right combination.
That's why, thanks to me introducing this show to you guys, and as you guys are familiar with the World Masterpiece Theater, that's why I call it. I like to joke about, especially with Joe, but like, so Joe, do you think maybe the Narnia books could have been served well with a World Masterpiece Theater treatment? And yeah, it really is a shame that this kind of adaptation is not attempted more nowadays, because I do believe it's a genuine, really good way of trying to be faithful adaptation of a book. I would love to see. I would love to see the Harry Potter series be given its own World Masterpiece, and a Harry Potter anime World Masterpiece Theater style. I would see that.
Well, yeah, I could see them doing one for the Three Musketeers as well. And the best thing, now I can get what that reference that Pearl was making in Justice for All was about, that Pedro really liked.
Exactly. It's that's why I don't know how the books are, but imagine the anime and you see Harry, Ron, and Hermione having their daily classes, learning with each other and bonding over. There's so much potential there for a great anime. I would love to see that.
Anyway, I'm pretty sure I forgot something. It's probably gonna be one of those cases where future editing me is gonna say, "You forgot to tell this, you piece of shit." But that's the most of it I can remember for the time being. So overall, this was pleasant to remember it. So thank you, Pedro.
You're welcome.
And I guess we'll see you for whatever series we do next.
See ya then.
See ya.